Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. This is going to be a fairly rapid clatter through some of the things that you need to consider about getting involved in Wave 2.2. So the first challenge is that the projects that you're trying to engage in, these are big, complex construction projects, and they have to be delivered on a tight timeline. There's not a lot of room for too much thinking, too much going back and going over things. The competition is open. In January, it closes. February, you get notifications. March, grant funding agreement signed. And we should be seeing the projects being delivered very rapidly after that. So it's quite time scale. And there's a lot to think about. So this chart is from a resource which is available to you, the Retrofit Project Overview Toolkit, and it shows the key stages of a project. And this is a high level view of the main tasks, but you're going to have to go into more detail and detail that's specific to your project, organization, and if you're in one, your consortium. So right now you're going to be thinking about the preparation, but it's important that you don't forget these latter stages, because time spent on these now will save you a lot of pain later on. So this is just one example of the assets which are available to you, and I'm going to keep referring to these through this presentation. So let's zoom in on the preparation phase, and let's also add some additional tasks that you need to look at when you're doing your initial thinking. And they are specifically thinking about the business case, ensuring you've got buy-in from all the partners you need, and sorting out the finance. And then the rest of these issues, part of them is getting familiar with PAS 2035 and how you're going to use it, dealing with the data you require, forming your team, thinking about monitoring and evaluation strategy, and beginning to think about what planning constraints you might face. So there's quite a lot of work to do in this preparation phase, which is up to the point where you're submitting the application. The good news is there is help. On the website, you can find toolkits here for all of the key activities in that preparation stage. They're under the heading of the knowledge base. They vary in length and complexity, but they're all designed to walk you through completing that particular part of the planning. And they also link you to other resources, other websites which are useful to you, other bits of information. They're mostly not too overwhelming, and they're extremely useful. So anything you're not absolutely sure about, please make sure you get the toolkit. It will help you. And then, of course, there are on-demand webinars on a range of topics. There are case studies. There are webinars on specific issues like what is PAS 2035, how do I do procurement, all those different kinds of things, technologies, modern methods of manufacturing, dealing with the data, ensuring you've got data quality, tackling planning requirements. Plenty of those resources are also available to you. So these cover all aspects of the social housing retrofit from soup to nuts, and they include case studies and examples from real projects. So these two resources are going to be very, very useful to you. After this session, then Turner and Townsend are running a number of future sessions that cover these specific topics. And these are areas that are known to cause problems, known to be areas where applicants have difficulties. So sorting out the data and identifying the right products. PAS 2035 has just been updated. How has that changed? What does it mean for you? Do you really grasp PAS 2035? Thinking about the possible interventions and how that interacts with the cost caps, handling your procurement, completing the application form, and planning your delivery. So there's a lot of material going to be covered in some detail in future sessions, but we're just doing an overview, and I'm going to be talking about 3 specific topics. The first is being part of a consortium. The second is developing the business case. The third is getting buy-in from all the stakeholders. And hopefully that, together with the later sessions, which are going to go into more specific detail, will help you plan your project. So, consortia. Should you be part of a consortium? If you're going to be part of a consortium, how should you go about it? So the first question is why would you want to be in a consortium? Because it really is going to make life more difficult. It is going to add to your headaches. It's going to make things more complicated. There will be additional paperwork. And if you're the lead partner, then DESNZ will only work with you. It will be your job to make sure that all the funds are dispersed properly, your job to make sure everybody reports on time and supplies the information in the right format. There is no escaping it. There is just more bureaucracy. And there will be arguments. People make different assumptions, work in different ways, have different histories. They have their own priorities, resources, and plans. So the consortium is just not going to do what the leader thinks all the time. There will be debate, there will be arguments, there will be conflicts. It can get tricky. So given all that, why even think about a consortium? Because there are a number of good reasons. The first is scale. DESNZ is looking for large projects with big impacts. They're trying to get you to scale up, to go beyond a tentative demonstrator to mainstream high volume production. And that's why they've set a minimum of 100 properties for a project, and they're looking for more. So by working with other partners in a consortium, you can get the scale to make your project attractive. The second benefit is strength. Working together, you can build a stronger application that's a better fit to the competition targets, one that assembles a broader set of resources that can have greater impact, a larger group of properties, pushing project properties in poorer conditions to a higher EPC rating, or properties of different types, for example, including housing for disabled or vulnerable tenants, demonstrating faster scale up, assembling a stronger and more effective supply chain. Working together, you can actually do that. You have more muscle. You can pull on your supply chain harder. You can bring them to deliver what you require. So you can be stronger together. And a consortium also allows you to work with people that may have skills you feel you're missing, or have greater experience of setting up and delivering a complex retrofit project, or have people who work with and understand PAS 2035 a lot better than you do, and that can help you. All these benefits allow you to make a more powerful and convincing case for your project. A consortium can be more ambitious and can demonstrate more effective delivery than a single applicant. So although there are challenges to being part of a consortium, and there is extra work and extra hassle to deal with, there are lots of real benefits to working collaboratively with other people. So this is our model of a consortium life cycle, and this is from the consortium forming toolkit. So there are questions to consider before forming a consortium, how to form a consortium, managing a consortium, and then what to do at the end of the contract, what to do when the project's finished. So before forming a consortium, is a consortium the right choice for your organization? Do you already have all the required skills and experience in-house? Are there other ways to fill those gaps, perhaps with a subcontractor? Do you have the time and resources to form a consortium? And are all the internal departments on board? Your board, your finance, your procurement, etc. These are questions you need to be thinking before you even get into forming a consortium. Is it the right thing for you? Is it going to add enough value to overcome those extra resource costs? And then forming a consortium, start early. It takes time. If you can't start early, it just, it always just makes it more difficult. Find the right partners. Find partners whose goals align with yours. Perhaps who have experience bidding or have something special that they can bring from previous projects that they can bring to the consortium. Agree on the type of agreement you're going to have. How will the operations work? Who's going to be the lead? What steering group? How will you make decisions? And how will you communicate? How will information flow? How are decisions going to be made? And then once you've decided to form a consortium and you've agreed and you've got an agreement together, then there are the practicalities of managing a consortium. Communication's hugely important, right? Everybody gets their head down and gets focused on their part of the project, their group of properties, their specific activity. And gradually people just drift apart. Keeping it all together, very important, and communications play a huge role in that. Roles and responsibilities, who does what? Handling the staffing requirements, handling the change management, thinking about quality management, agreeing how you're going to do that collectively, sorting out the reporting, internal and external. How are you going to resolve disagreements? And there are some specific tools that we recommend. Again, they're in the toolkits, the RACI chart, boundary objects, things like that. These are good tools to help the communications and help keep the consortium together, keep them aligned and delivering. And then there's the end of the contract. What are you going to do next? Is an extension possible or desirable? Not necessarily through more funding from the government, but it might be there's value in continuing to work together for procurement regions. So do the members want to continue? Is the common goal the same? Is a consortium still the right choice? There are also potentially, in some cases, issues of who will own any assets, leases, equipment, and the responsibility for monitoring and evaluation and reporting post-retrofit, because these projects have that post-evaluation assessment as a key part of it, because we're trying to encourage the learning. So initial steps: understand your goals, know what you want to deliver, know your capabilities and resources, and from that, work out what are you looking for in a partner. How can you find a partner that strengthens your project, that mutually you can support each other, that you are compatible, that you have matching skills, and you can cover each other's gaps? So be clear what you are looking for, and then finding a partner, places to look. Who have you worked with before? Do you already have collaborations that you can build on? Are you already part of a strategic partnership or group, maybe procurement partnership and some other activity? Who else is working in your area? Can you use geographic considerations to help you find partners? What's going on, in the next area over from yours? And what is your LA up to? What's your local authority doing? Can they help to pull together your consortium? Whatever consortium you create, you need a consortium agreement. You need an agreement that lays down what happens. So it'll have to be a lead partner. And there's a complete spectrum of options, from a simple letter of intent, memorandum of understanding, which has no particular legal force, but is just a kind of shared commitment to each other. This is how we're going to do things. You can have legal agreements that lay things down much more contractually. And in some cases, people have gone as far as creating a joint venture or a special purpose vehicle as a separate organization to deliver projects like these. So you've got to try and figure out where on that spectrum suits the kind of project you want to undertake. And that leads into the management structure: who does what? Being clear about the obligations of each member of the consortium to each other. Well, all that needs to be set out in a consortium agreement, which, in an ideal world, if the project goes brilliantly, you will never have to consult the consortium agreement. But if something goes wrong, if a supplier goes bust, if a consortium partner has to drop out, something changes, the consortium agreement is a lifesaver because it explains what you are going to do in those circumstances. And we strongly recommend that you take legal advice, either internal or external to your organization, in setting up that consortium agreement. It is a vital piece of information. And unfortunately, they are so specific to each set of circumstances that there really are no good templates that we have been able to find out there. It'd be great to say, okay, here's a standard consortium agreement, fill in the boxes and you're done. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work that way. It is too specific to the project you're setting out to do and the partners who are involved, but it's a vital part of the process. And what the consortium agreement does is make sure that everybody is clear about the roles and responsibilities, what they are committing to, how decisions get made, what information needs to flow, all of that stuff, which is so helpful to a successful project. So pulling that together, start early. It takes a long time to create a working consortium. You may have sorted out your partners already, but there's still a lot of work to do to weld them into a team. And that continues through the project. It's a continuous process. Think about the critical needs of your project. Who has the resources, the interests and skills? What have you got to offer other consortium members and what do you need from them? And spend time creating a shared project plan. In a consortium, the plans must be co-developed and co-owned. If one party makes all the decisions, there will be unending tensions. And make sure each partner brings something significant and additional to the collaboration. So each member of the consortium needs to be valued for what they add. And each partner must know what they are obligated to deliver. What is their role? Make sure that all the key functions and all the consortium partners know what is being planned. It's very easy for a core team to get together, sort everything out, and then suddenly run into a brick wall of concerns from the other functions that you need support from. Think about the mechanics of the collaboration, that governance, how a decision is going to be made, what are the processes, what meetings are you going to have. It's all a bit boring, but it is a really important part of it. How will you make decisions and how will you share information? Because sharing information is a critical part of this. And then make sure you spend time getting the consortium agreement right. As I said, if the project goes smoothly, you may never even look at the consortium agreement. But when things go wrong, it can be a lifesaver. So you may think that the most important thing to do is to get the application form filled in correctly. And that's clearly a vital step. However, it should be based on a clear business case that you've used to get everybody who's going to be involved on board with the project. So a good business case should help all the stakeholders to understand, influence, and shape the project. Bring everybody together around common objectives and plans. It should help those key decision makers to see the costs, the benefits and the risks of the project. It should make absolutely clear the purpose of the project. What is it intended to do? And a good business case shows that the implications of the project have been thought through, that you've carefully examined it from all directions. It is not something that's just used to get approval. It's relevant throughout the project as a basis for management, monitoring and evaluation. And it is the basis for getting the buy-in you need, both from the leadership and senior management team, from partners, from other consortium members, from everybody you need support from. There are also things that a business case is definitely not. It is not a purely mechanical process where you plug in the numbers and out pops the answer. It doesn't ask all the questions or cover all the issues that form part of the project. It's a good starting point, but you're going to have to add additional stuff. It's not static. This is vital. It is not a static document used for one purpose and then put on the shelf and never looked at again. It changes and evolves throughout the planning of the project and during delivery. And it must never be a substitute for active and ongoing discussion and debate. A good business case is a tool for thinking. It's not a frozen document. So the business case tackles three fundamental questions. What is the project and what will it deliver? Why are you proposing the project? And then how are you going to deliver it? And this is our model of the business case, again from the toolkit, the business case toolkit. It's a framework to help you make sure you've covered all the essential topics, a series of questions you must answer for a successful project. So they range from the strategic purpose. What is the alignment between this project and the strategy? We will be a net zero carbon emissions organization by 2050. This project is a step to a net zero housing stock or whatever. Deals with the outcome. What will the project deliver? This project will deliver an upgrade of these 100 properties to EPCC at a minimum. And the benefits. If we deliver the project, what will be the benefits and who benefits? Who's the receiver of the benefits? If we deliver the project, we will develop our capability for large-scale upgrades, improve the quality of our stock, cut maintenance costs, and improve tenant satisfaction. And then the actions that you're going to take. What steps are you going to take to deliver the outcome and benefits? A combination of external wall and loft insulation, together with replacement windows and doors, or whatever. And then the delivery plan. What's the program for delivering the retrofit actions? What is it going to cost? How are you going to finance that? What resources, both internal and external, you need to deliver the project? What is the procurement strategy and tactics for procuring the external resources? And then critically, the risk management. What is your risk management plan and your risk register? So the outcome, benefits, and retrofit actions cover what is in the project, what the project will deliver. The strategic purpose covers why. How does this project meet the needs of the organization? Where does it fit with the overall strategy? And critically, why should the leadership team pick this project rather than another? And then the other sections, the delivery plan, the costs, the financing, resource requirements, procurement strategy, and risk management cover how you plan to deliver the project objectives. And risk management in particular is something that gathers information from all other aspects of the project. It's often hard to get right. It involves thinking the unthinkable and developing a way to handle it should it happen. Now, your organization may have a set process for developing a business case, but if you collect all the information in this framework, you should be able to compile the business case regardless of the structure, just rearrange the sections as necessary. And similarly, if you have information on all of these topics, it makes it much easier to fill in the application form for SHDF funding. And it's much easier to develop a management plan to keep the project going. And one thing you can do is you can create a one-page overview of the project. So you can put a few words in each of these boxes to give a kind of simple one-page overview of what is the project and how is it going to work. And you can also color code things, so red, amber, and green, and it's a good way of giving that instant one-page overview. Where are we up to? What's working? What's not working? So again, pulling this together, a business case is a story, not a document. It has many audiences, many contributors, and many uses. It's not a mechanical process, and it is not static. It explains what, why, and how, and then use the framework to make sure that you cover all the topics that are important. And the key thing to remember is it's not possible to just kind of sit down and write the business case. There will be things that emerge. There will be things that are incompatible. You'll have a set of objectives, a set of outcomes you're looking for, a set of benefits, set of plans, and then you find that the costs don't work. So you need to rethink. So there is a kind of continuous reevaluation of the different parts of the plan to make sure that you can actually deliver it. And so you must come to know your business case very thoroughly. You will be using it constantly throughout the project. Okay, so telling the story and getting buy-in. Ultimately, we need buy-in from all of the participants and stakeholders, but let's start with the leadership team because they're the first hurdle. Why do we need senior level buy-in? Why is it essential to a project? Well, leadership teams always have more opportunities to pursue than they have resources to deliver them. There's intense competition for resources, and you'll want to get your project high up on their list of priorities. And so you need to make it matter to them. You need to tell them a story they can't forget. The business case can provide the numbers and the rationale for the project, but to really persuade, you need to weave a story that inspires. And if you can get that leadership buy-in, it brings you major benefits. You're going to be asking your organization to commit significant resources and take additional risk. Management needs to support that and to believe that your project is worth investing those additional resources in. Visible senior management commitment also contributes to a strong bid. Their support will be evident to the assessors. And during the process, their support will also open doors to help you deal with the competing priorities of some of the other people who are going to be involved. Lots of different parts of the organization will need to work together to deliver the project, and the leadership team can commit the whole organization to a project. They can help you embed organizational values such as equality, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility in a way that you on your own cannot. They're the owners of those core beliefs of the organization. And the external stakeholders, such as perhaps your consortium partners and your supply chain, they will believe in the project more if they see that senior leaders are acting as champions. That helps ensure their buy-in as well. And you'll be asking your organization to do some challenging things and to do them fast. And senior leaders can break through organizational barriers in a way that is much more difficult for you. So they're really worth getting on side. But to get that senior buy-in, you must tell a convincing story about the project. Facts and projections on their own are not enough. You need to feel the importance of the project. You're selling the project to a bunch of experienced people with different backgrounds, approaches, and responsibilities. You need to make the project relevant to each one of them, to connect with them in written argument and in presentations. And they have a lot going on. You'll have to fight for mind space to show that this is a real priority. So one piece of advice is begin warming them up early. Most executives don't like to be suddenly confronted with the project and bounced into a decision. Your chances of success are greater if they've seen the idea grow over time. One of the key roles is often no surprises. So this is a quote from the best CFO I have ever worked with. Return on investment calculations never persuaded a board to do what they didn't want to do or persuaded them not to do what they wanted to. So you've got to connect with their priorities. And this applies to all of the other groups you need help from as well. Right? They're not necessarily going to respond to your calculations, to your priorities. Why is this important to them? How does this help them achieve their goals? Why does it matter? So telling the story, to create a compelling story, you must be clear on what the project will deliver, why it's important to your organization, and how you will deliver it. That's the business case bit we've just been talking about. Then alignment. Your story needs to show that the project aligns with the goals of needs of the organization and important stakeholders. Those may be internal to the organization, the corporate strategy. They may be external forces, trends and drivers, or based on the wants and needs of specific individuals or teams. And then when you have the story and you've got your alignment sorted out in your mind, you have to tell the story. You need to tell it effectively. And to do that, you need to be able to reduce the complexity of your story, adapt it to the different audiences, and then use the story to convince. And this process of working your story and telling it goes on throughout the project. So that alignment challenge, you must find out what matters to the organization and the key individuals. Some topics will be internal to the organization. The published strategy. Has your organization declared a climate emergency? Have they made a commitment to net zero? What public statements have been made about policy and direction? What are the metrics that show how they will judge performance? What are the metrics by which they will judge performance? And can you show that your project will help deliver their strategic objectives? There can be external trends and drivers. Are there specific topics they need to address? Is fuel poverty a big issue, or ill health caused by poor indoor air quality? Perhaps there are new regulations or legal obligations coming in the next few years that they need to pay attention to. How can your project contribute to addressing the trends and drivers that are forces acting on these decision makers? And then what are the needs of the various stakeholders? Here's one of your colleagues. You need their help to deliver your project. He's already very busy. How are you going to persuade him? How will your project make his life easier? How are you going to make him a hero? Addressing the needs of individual groups and the teams that you need to work with, whether it's some of your key suppliers, how can you make sure it's a top priority for them? Maybe it's a repairs and maintenance team. You need to work in a different way. Maybe it's help you need in stock analysis. You need to be able to show that this is going to solve their problems as well as your problem. So thinking things through, having that alignment. And then there's telling the story. And a key communications idea is the elevator pitch. You're probably familiar with the story. You have a great idea. You meet the CEO in the elevator and you have 20 seconds between floors to make your case. Not to cover all the detail, but to interest people. You get the chance for detail later, grab their attention first. And marketers have an acronym for the journey you take a buyer on. They talk about AIDA, AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. If you can't create the attention and interest, you're not going to get any action. So make the project meaningful to them and they will help you deliver it. And if you know your business case well, you can quickly pick out the key themes that fit the people you're talking to and express them simply. Make sure you cover the important stuff right at the beginning of any conversation or presentation. Be very clear. The problem is, it is important because if only we could, it would fix this problem, create this opportunity. And to do that, we need to be able to. And then the details come later. Being able to do that is an important tool in project management. And the classic way of constructing your communications elevator pitch is with an inverted pyramid. You start with the core information with a few simple words, then introduce your main argument, and then move on to further detail as required. Think about it like a newspaper article. You have a headline, and then the key takeaways are immediately under that. And then they go into more detail and give some of the backstory and some of the details. If you structured your story that way, the key points are communicated first, and then you can get into more detail. So no matter how much time you have, whether you have that elevator conversation or whether you're doing a 1-hour presentation, you can adapt the story to the people you're talking to and the amount of time you have to always make sure you get the key information across. And you will tell the story of the project over and over again. You will need to engage with all these different groups of stakeholders at different stages of the project. And you will need to bring them into the project and the conversation, not just push information at them. You want their willing participation. One way you can do that is something called active listening that you can look up on the internet. It's a standard technique. You do not ask closed questions. Is A or B right? You ask open questions. How might we go about? How might we solve this problem? What is your thinking on the best way we can reduce this risk? If you're using open questions, listening to the information, feeding back to people what you heard, checking you're right, that process makes sure that you are engaging with them, that you're bringing them into a conversation. You're not just having them sit there passively. So senior management buy-in is essential, and you've got to get the buy-in of all the other groups you need as well, including the tenants. Use the same ideas to build stories for all the other groups you need support from. A good plan won't do it on its own. It's got to be sold. It's not just a question of writing it down. It'll be obvious to people. You have to sell it. And you're going to have to fight for mind space because people are busy. Start early and build momentum. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Your story grows and evolves and draws people in so it becomes their story too. Connect with those priorities, the strategy, the issues and drivers, and the needs of the different functions and the different stakeholder groups. Distill your plan into an elevator pitch so that at a moment's notice you can do a 30-second, 1-minute presentation on the key points. If you can't fit your project, the key parts of your project onto one side of A4, you have not understood your project. And then adjust the pitch to the audience. Where are they coming from? What are their particular issues? What part of the project is most relevant to them? And then keep telling the story. Use ideas like active listening to help you make it a conversation rather than just pushing information.